This podcast is part of the It Was a Thing on TV podcast network.
Before we get started this evening, guys, I don't know how to tell you this. We've been doing this podcast for a little bit over 6 years, and this place is an absolute sausage party. You know what we need? We need some babes.
Babes? Babes?
Well, again, there's 3 guys here. Have we ever had a female on the podcast? No. What are we afraid of? We need to get more diversity here. I mean, we've got diversity in the sense of different ages and different races and whatnot, but we don't have diversity in terms of females. So I think tonight we need to get some babes.
Well, we've got 3 dudes. Do we have 3 babes?
Oddly enough, we do have 3 babes, sort of. I guess we'll just have to see what we're talking about. But before that, I think we've got a special message that a certain somebody wants to tell these babes.
Ladies, let's have a party.
Let's start the show.
An anthology on the bad, the short-lived, and forgotten shows and events in television history. You are listening to It Was a Thing on TV.
Time is up. You ran into trouble.
Episode 590. Submission 444. Hey, it's the slot machine, but with 4s. 444. I don't think that gets you anything in Vegas.
No.
Babes. Babes aired on Fox from September 13th of 1990 to May 9th of 1991 for 22 episodes.
Shook, and everywhere you look, all you see is babes. I think the ground just shook, and everywhere you look, all you see is babes.
Gentlemen, I don't know about you, but this is a show that I've actually wanted to talk about for a little bit of time. As a younger version of Mike, I thought this show was stupid. No, really, I thought it was stupid, and I'm going to make an admission, and I told Chico and Greg about this earlier. When I originally saw this show as a 15-year-old, being the dumbass that I was when I was 15, I called this show the half ton of fun. That's mean. In retrospect, it's really mean. Especially given that 2/3 of the people in the show are not with us any longer for various reasons. But also making fun of plus-size people, not cool. And really, again, in retrospect, when I was 15, I was trying to get in better shape. But I was still overweight. I was still heavy. Yeah, I played defensive line and offensive line in high school. What people don't know is I played the entire line. No, I played tackle and defensive end and whatnot. But that was the basis of this show. You had these 3 women, 3 sisters, who were all overweight. And what they were doing was they were facing the different challenges of life, like work and relationships, being popular among not just the boys, presumably females as well, just all those sort of challenges that overweight people might have. And remember, this is before the internet, so this is overweight people without the luxury of digital modification and anonymity. You actually have to go out and work or go out and go shopping or go out and whatever. Make a living. That's basically what it is. They're trying to make a living being overweight. And sometimes it's a bit of a challenge. These three ladies, they actually shared a one-bedroom apartment in New York City. They shared a one-bedroom apartment in New York City.
New York City?
Somebody was paying attention. Thank you.
New York City?
And the three sisters, they're the Gilbert sisters. I love these names. Just saying. You had Darlene Gilbert, you had Charlene Gilbert, and you had Marlene Gilbert. Darlene, Charlene, and Marlene. I think that's adorable. So Darlene was the oldest sister. She was a dog groomer and also recently divorced. And oddly enough, who did her now ex-husband have an affair with? Their weight loss counselor.
Oh.
Yeah, that hurts. Charlene was the middle sister, and she was a makeup artist, and she was the most active out of the three. So this isn't just sedentary activities. You do have people who are trying to better themselves, which is commendable, especially as somebody who has been kind of big for going on like 40 years. So I totally, salute these women, even though 35 years ago I was like, half ton of fun. I'm a better person now. The youngest sister, Marlene, she was a former toll collector and later an actress in a pantyhose commercial and a soap opera. And she was the person that was a dreamer who was naive and trusting a little too much. We know those types. She's the youngest. She's going to be kind of naive and kind of wet behind the ears, if you will. Charlene, the middle sister, did have a boyfriend who owned a restaurant. His name is Ronnie Underwood. He only appeared in the first 10 episodes. After he left the show in mid-season, you had the landlady of the apartment building, Florence Newman. She was the regular that replaced Ronnie Underwood. One thing that I noticed while doing research for this show, these ladies, and I don't remember it that much from the original airing because, again, I was a little jerk who wasn't really paying attention to plot lines and stuff like that. There was a lot of physical comedy being done. And Wikipedia actually mentions a couple of examples of this physical comedy. Charlene getting in a helium-filled dress, Darlene breaking a hockey stick while attending a New York Rangers game, Marlene waking up the sisters with potato chips after they don't hear her come in, and all three sisters ganging up on a mime after he mocked them. Why do I think that mime is me back in 1990? Well, whatever. But still, you can see that these sisters, they're not being made fun of. They're not being treated as sideshows. They're trying to empower themselves. So this is actually kind of an uplifting comedy. Did we need uplifting in 1990? Maybe, maybe not. But an effort was made. You got to give them credit there. And we'll talk about the ratings a little bit later, which really were very surprising, at least in a Fox aspect. If you know Fox shows, especially in the first 6, 7, oh gosh, I said it, 6, 7. Oh no.
No.
Okay, Chico knows about that.
I still have no idea what the hell that means, but there you go.
Well, nor do I, but the thing is, as a teacher, especially a math teacher, I've been trying to avoid that combination of numbers for basically 2 months now. Just at the time you hear this, about 2.5 weeks ago, when South Park did its 6-7 episode, 6-7, 6-7 with the hand juggling motion. I had not seen the hand motion until that episode, and now anytime I mention 6-7 or 6 or 7, they do the hand motion in my classes. But also, I like, even the other day, I opened up my room at like 8:20 in the morning, just got into work, setting up the room for the day, and one of my students comes in and he looks at the thermostat. I'm thinking, oh, he's going to complain about it's either too cold or too hot. No, he looks at the thermostat and he sees that the temperature in the room at the time was 67 degrees, and the thermostat was set for 67 degrees. So he saw like two pairs of 67s. He's like, 67, 67, 67. I'm like, oh no, this is too early in the morning to be doing this stuff. But anyhow, as I was saying about the 6 or 7, what the hell was I saying about the 6 or 7? I went sort of off topic there, and I don't even remember what the hell I was going to say. What I was referring to when I said 6 or 7 is the first 6 or 7 years of existence of Fox in terms of ratings, how lackluster they were until they got the NFL contract. We know the general idea of the show. It's the three sisters living together, the challenges that they go through, the sort of self-improvement that they're trying to go through as well, given their situation. But now we got to talk about the people behind the characters, because we got some very good actresses on this show. We will start off with the older sister, Darlene, played by Susan Peretz. And if you look at her picture on IMDb, she's one of those people where you say, I've seen her before, but I can't necessarily put a name to a show or a face to a show. And actually, I thought she was the Snapple lady, because she looks like the Snapple lady a little bit, but she's not the Snapple lady because she passed away in 2004. Looking at her IMDb, I know exactly where I know her from. Here comes your Married with Children reference for the week. She was in a 1993 episode. This is season 7. This is the 7 season when the cousin comes by and Bobcat Goldthwait's character drops him off or abandons him at the Bundy house. She played a job counselor because Al, he got early retirement and he was looking for a side job. And the name of this job counselor was Mrs. Blob. B-L-A-U-B. Blob. But it sounded more like Blob. And Al, at the time, took full advantage of it in his usual Al Bundy way, calling her Blob. And she'd say, no, it's Blob, not Blob. Again, the political incorrectness and total inappropriateness of Married with Children and 1993. Can't do that in 2025, but 1993, darn right, Fox is going to take advantage of that.
Now I got a question. How is Al Bundy in early retirement? How is a shoe salesman in early retirement?
He was offered $12,000 in early retirement. So he worked, how long? He started in high school, so he worked, I'm guessing, 26, 27, 28 years. He took it. Besides the career change, Al wanted to buy a shoe store, so now he had his shoe experience, and he was going to be an owner, which makes sense. You work at a shoe store for 26, 27, 28 years. You could be your own owner, and you know the business pretty well. There were 3 employees, and this is, I think, the first time you hear about the 3 Habibs, because Habibs come up occasionally in the last 4 seasons or so, from like season 7 to the end. Habib is used quite a bit. The 3 Habibs, they worked for Al, and Al actually sold the business before the end of the show. He got out of the business. But what happened is the 3 Habibs, they asked Al, hey, do you want to invest in a lottery ticket? The lottery is so big. Do you want to put $1 or $2 in our pool for the lottery? No. Lotteries are a sham and nobody wins, etc., etc., etc. And then in, of course, the most true Al Bundy way, who ends up winning the jackpot in the lottery? The 3 Habibs. And so Al's like, oh, I should have played the lottery. One of the funnier episodes, at least of that season. But that's Susan Peretz in a nutshell. The second person we're going to talk about, we'll just go down the line. We have the oldest sister, we'll go to the middle sister. The middle sister, Charlene, is played by Wendy Jo Sperber. I don't even know if we necessarily need to mention what else she's done. She's done quite a bit. She hasn't been with us for 20 years at this point. Actually, it'll be 20 years in about 4 weeks. November 29th, 2005 is when she passed. But Wendy Jo Sperber, the place you probably know her best, she was on Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks. She played Amy Cassidy. But she's done so much more than that. We talked about her in Women in Prison, which we're actually going to talk about when we re-rank the 50 worst shows in TV history, coming up in the Presents episode.
Oh, yeah. Even though, let's be honest, the theme song's one of the greatest of all time.
And that's actually something I kept in mind when ranking the TV shows. It's like, yes, Women in Prison, crap show, but one of the absolute best themes of all time. You got that part right.
And I need to mention Wendy Jo Sperber was Marty McFly's sister in Back to the Future.
But also, and Chico actually has this as his background this week for our Zoom conversation. She did a voice in a very early episode of American Dad. The youngest sister, Marlene Gilbert, was played by Leslie Boone. Leslie Boone played Molly Hudson on 83 episodes of Ed, if you remember Ed back 20-ish years ago.
Oh, I remember Ed.
It was a good show, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It was from Letterman's People.
Playing Charlene's boyfriend that we mentioned earlier, who was in the first 10 episodes, Ronnie Underwood, is Rick Overton. And actually, IMDb says he's only in 7, but he was gone by the 10th episode, so maybe he wasn't in 10 episodes, but he was gone by episode 10. He played Deputy Pete Willis in Eight-Legged Freaks, if you remember that movie.
Oh, Eight-Legged Freaks, starring David Arquette.
Well, I was going to say it's like Dollar Store Arachnophobia, but yeah, sure. I'm sorry, I just saw Arachnophobia on House of Svengoolie a couple weeks ago. Oh, man, that's such a good movie. Not good if you're afraid of spiders. Just putting that out there, but...
Oh, no.
No, oh gosh, but, you know, so many good people in that movie in terms of actors. John Goodman, Jeff Bridges, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, after Rick Overton / Ronnie Underwood wasn't on the show anymore, he was replaced by the landlord of the apartment complex where the sisters live. The landlord is Florence Newman. Guys, hold me back, because Florence Newman was played by the one and only Nedra Voles. I thought I'd get some level of disdain from Greg.
No, my disdain is already subsided.
All right. Nedra Voles, in case we have to say who she is the best thing to happen to Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, and that's really all I need to say, even though we could talk about those episodes of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show she was on. We could talk about different strokes. We could talk about Filthy Rich, which I'd love to cover one day, but there's no Filthy Rich out there.
What the hell is Filthy? Wait.
Wait. Oh, you don't know what Filthy Rich is?
No, I don't know what Filthy Rich is.
It was a CBS comedy about 82 or so, 83. So this is like right before she made it big on Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. And it's a Linda Bloodworth Thomason series about just like an eccentric family that has more money than brains, essentially. Kinda. But the thing is, I mentioned Linda Bloodworth Thomason for a reason, because two of the other people in this show, besides Nedra Voles, are Dixie Carter and Delta Burke. So you have a little Designing Women connection there.
Oh, yes.
But there's next to nothing about Filthy Rich on YouTube or anything like that. I haven't checked archive.org. And actually, we did use the closing credits for Filthy Rich on a previous episode. I don't remember what episode, but I think it was within the last year to 18 months. So clearly we're talking about Linda Bloodworth Thomason or Nedra Voles or maybe Delta Burke or Dixie Carter in some capacity that I had to use this Filthy Rich close for that episode as the end. I don't know. Those are the main characters for this series. Just the 5 people. How about we go over some episodes? Because we got 22. And we'll start with that pilot. And the pilot is called just the pilot. There's no episode title. Funny enough. Darlene and Marlene interrupt Charlene's romantic evening. Actually, we'll take it a step further. That's the IMDb capsule. Wiki says, Charlene's romantic night with Ronnie and her life of living by herself is ruined when Darlene moves in after her husband Wilbur has an affair and Marlene loses her job as a New Jersey Turnpike toll collector. Nobody of note in that episode in the pilot, so we're going to go to episode 2, which is called Bend Me, Shape Me. Bend me, shape me any way you want. Never mind. Charlene tries to get Darlene and Marlene to become weight conscious after she shows a workout video. But the two don't want to weigh in on the reaction when they are enticed by Charlene to join a health club, which comes true for Charlene after she receives the prejudicial taunting after they join. Like I said, they're trying to keep a positive aspect given their general size, their girth, and somebody's got to screw it up. Well, I mentioned earlier, there's a mime who gets punched by all three of them, and now there's taunting based on them going to a health club to improve their lives. People are mean. I think that's the overarching moral to this story. We do have a couple of names in this episode. Playing Joan is Erica Yan. And I believe we talked about her in the past, and even if we didn't, she was Madame Ruby in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yes, but I know where we talked about her. She was in the famous Teddy Z.
I thought you were going to say that. Seriously, without looking at IMDb, I remember that name being connected to the famous Teddy Z for some reason. But also, she voiced Mama Mousekewitz in American Tail. Another name in this episode, playing Naomi. Don't know if she's somebody who is at the health club or what she is or who she is. Jennifer Convey, yes, Bert Convey's daughter. So you know what happened, guys? Jennifer Convey went to Dad and said, "Hey, Dad, I got this possible role for a TV show. I got this role for Babes." And you know what happened when Bert Convey heard this? He looked at the contract and said, Babes. Episode number 3 is titled Everything But Love. In an effort to clean up Darlene's love life and to get her mind off Wilbur, Charlene takes her to an unlikely place to meet guys, the neighborhood laundromat. The experience also gives Darlene a chance to wash herself clean from her 14 years of marriage after she realizes that Wilbur doesn't really know anything about Darlene. And we got some names. And seriously, one of these names, give this person under 6 months, maybe even like 4 months, and he's going to be known throughout the country. Playing Tony is Mark DiCarlo from Studs.
So you're saying he went from Babes to Studs?
I'm going to give you a very silent golf clap. That was very clever.
Whenever I think of Studs, you know what I think of? That bit from The Late Shift where Dave says, "You got studs and you got Letterman. You can either have studs or Letterman."
Another person in this episode, Brandon Maggart, plays Wilbur, the ex of Darlene. He was in 115 episodes of Brothers on Showtime.
And I know we've talked about him in the past at some point. And I see exactly where we talked about him. He played Mike Donovan on Chicken Soup, the Jackie Mason show that was really good ratings-wise, but Jackie Mason decided to say some stupid stuff and the show got canceled. But also he played George Eliot in Jennifer Slept Here. But again, tying this all back to Married with Children, because gosh knows I'm like a vacuum of information when it comes to Married with Children. He played a kids' TV show host called Uncle Deadly in the final season of Married with Children. He got fired sort of in an ageist manner. He was getting old, and they brought aboard Kelly, who was younger, obviously, but also she had a little bit more sex appeal. Okay, compared to Brandon Maggart, she had a hell of a lot more sex appeal. Bud actually fought for Uncle Dudley to get back on the show out of spite, because Bud and Kelly have that usual sibling relationship, a love-hate relationship. Yeah, I love to hate them. Bud actually got Uncle Dudley's job back in the end, and Kelly, she lost another job. She had so many jobs on that show. She couldn't hold a job to save her life. Episode 4 is titled The One Where Charlene Meets Ronnie's Mother. Hey, that sounds like a Friends episode, but Friends isn't going to be along for another 4 years. Things do not go as planned when Charlene meets Ronnie's mother. And Ronnie's mother, oh my gosh. If this person's not in the Hall of Fame, she may be, but if she's not, she's got to be on the list for next year. Dina Dietrich. Mother Nature from the chiffon margarine commercials, but also we talked about her. Specifically, I remember we talked about her on The Ropers because she played Helen Roper's sister. But there's so many other things that we could mention that she was on that we've covered in the past. She played a gypsy in Turnabout. Oh, our favorite TV show of all time, Turnabout.
Oh, what a piece of shit that was.
Hey, wait till we do the re-rankings. I want to hear where you guys put Turnabout. I'm not going to spoil mine, but I didn't rank it as high as you might think it is.
Whenever I think of Turnabout, I always think of that one freaking TV guy that had with Sharon Gless.
And Greg, how do you describe it every time we talk about it?
This is going to be me as Sharon Gless acting like a guy, okay? Hey, it's me, Sharon Gless. Look, I'm smoking a cigar. I'm a real man. This is how men smoke cigars, yeah.
That's what he does every time we talk about that ad with Sharon Gless and John Shuck on the In TV Guide. I'm Sharon Gless and I'm chomping on this cigar and I'm a sports writer. Yeah, I'm a real man.
Hey, let me just say this with all due respect. Sharon Gless did not go in front of that Federation Council at the beginning of Star Trek 4 and talk about how those Starfleet regulations on Captain Kirk were outrageous.
I'm going to have to see if that sound clip made the final cut, if I didn't lose it when my computer had problems about a month ago. I guess we'll find out in the final edit, but I'm guessing if I can't find it, Greg's got it.
I got Star Trek 4 in my hard drive.
Starfleet regulations, that's outrageous!
In addition, we did talk about her on an episode of Blansky's Beauties. There's a deep cut. But like I said, I remember her, or I remember talking about her on The Ropers. Helen Roper's sister, who was a snobbish little pain in the ass. Just saying, she was. One more name I want to mention, playing a bartender in this episode, is Randall Carver. I mentioned him primarily for one reason, but we've talked about him in the past. Randall Carver is married to Shelley Herman, who actually was a page at NBC back in the 70s, and I think the 80s as well. And she's written a really good book about her time as a page. Specifically, I remember she was a page at The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And I mentioned that because around the time we're recording this, I think yesterday actually, was Johnny Carson's 100th birthday. And I don't know if Greg or Chico listened to it yet, but the most recent episode of Fun for All Ages, oh my gosh, that is a good listen. I've only listened to maybe the first 45 minutes of it, but they did a heck of a job paying tribute to Carson and the different skits and whatnot. And actually, I need to find out where I can get some of the stuff they mentioned on the show, because they actually mentioned like the 50 greatest skits in their opinion in Carson history. And some of them I've never even heard of. And they go back to like the mid 60s, 66, 65. So stuff that we thought was totally gone apparently exists in some format. But also we know what is the number one thing all time on Carson. There's no way anything can beat this.
Is it the one clip of the guy with the axe?
Ed Ames, yes. That's that's the only answer. Ed Ames throwing the hatchet and basically hitting the crotch of the silhouette that was on the wood. Yes. because supposedly at the time, maybe even after that time, it was the longest sustained laugh in television history. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, you probably have seen it somehow, but it really is absolutely funny. You cannot script that type of stuff. Now that we got that out of the way, we're going to go to episode 5, which is titled Temper Temper. Darlene's temper becomes an issue after Wilbur demands spousal support. Oh, Brandon Maggart. A name on this episode, presumably I'm guessing this might be some sort of marriage counselor because her name is Dr. Ramirez. Candy Azara. Another name that we've mentioned quite a bit on this podcast. Maybe another potential candidate for Hall of Fame, because we have mentioned her on a number of occasions.
Got another name in this episode. No character, but we have an appearance by Armin Shimmerman. He plays Quark on Deep Space Nine.
Yes, of course, Quark.
Episode 6 is titled No Regrets. The sisters have a life-changing experience after surviving a near-fatal accident that almost crushed them to death. Episode 7 is titled Dream Vacation. The girls are in for a nightmare when they visit Club Cabo in this Fantasy Island-inspired episode. Greg, I hope you're seated. You're seated. I know. I hope like all your sphincters are clenched, because seriously, the reaction you get out of this, I don't know. There could be damage. There could be permanent damage done when you hear who played the Mr. Work character on this episode. We don't have a name for the character.
I bet it won't be as good as Ricardo Montalban, though.
Greg, I think you might be wrong. Playing this Mr. Work-like owner, man, I was actually hoping it'd be like
Mr. Black
on South Park. That was a nice little story arc there with the White House being treated as Fantasy Island with J.D. Vance playing Tattoo. But anyhow, the person who's playing this Mr. Work-like person, Greg, get your orange wedges and your baby swimming pool out. It's Cesar Romero. I think he fainted. Did he fall? Wait, did you fall out of your chair?
No, I'm sitting down on the floor. Oh my god!
He was not ready.
I told you it was worth the buildup. I warned Greg this afternoon. I said, Greg, do not do any research on babes. Episode 7 is going to be like the straw that breaks you forever. Because I knew when I mentioned Cesar Romero, I knew Greg would just be totally out of it.
I hope Wendy Jo Strummer was throwing orange wedges at his ass during the episode.
Oh my gosh. And just for everybody's knowledge, in case you don't know the whole story, first off, if you don't know the whole story about Cesar Romero and the oranges, you need to either listen to Fun for All Ages with Frank Santopadre. He may have mentioned it once on the podcast. I mean, the podcast is only about 2-3 months old.
They mentioned it in the Batman 66 episode with Dana Gould about the orange wedges.
Oh, well, that makes sense. And I think that was like one of the first, if not the first episode of Fun for All Ages. But if you don't listen to that, good heavens. How many times was this mentioned on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast? Often. Let's say that. But yeah, Cesar Romero was in this, and I knew I would absolutely just kill Greg when I brought up that he played Mr. Rourke, or Timu Mr. Rourke. Episode 8 is titled Marlene's Problem. After Charlene's interference that results in losing her job as the hefty hose girl, Marlene lands a job on a TV soap opera. Meanwhile, Darlene babysits a puppy that really dogs her out. I didn't write the capsule. Playing Merritt. Okay, that's an interesting name. Merritt. Another podcast favorite, and maybe another person that we can slide into the hall in the very near future. Matt McCoy.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we could talk about Lloyd Braun, but I think if we talk about Matt McCoy, we have to mention We Got It Made.
Yes. And we also got to talk about that he was Commodore Lasorde's nephew in Police Academy 5 and 6.
Okay. And I was also going to add, if we're talking about We Got It Made, we got to talk about the 1983 Thanksgiving Day Parade. But also, at least for a week, I think it was only a week, maybe he did 2 weeks, but he was on Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour.
And I want to mention something. He has a signed card in the Star Trek Next Generation Rittenhouse set.
Oh. Maybe something I should go after. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as big of a Star Trek fan or Matt McCoy fan as you guys are. But that might not be a bad addition. The next episode, which is episode 9, is the Thanksgiving show. Boy, I wonder what this could be about. The Thanksgiving show.
Is it going to be about Halloween?
Sure, why not? After vowing they would not eat anything on Thanksgiving Day, the Gilberts meet a homeless man and promises him that they would serve him a Thanksgiving dinner. So again, you see this very kind-hearted side to these people where you don't judge a book by its cover. These are very well-meaning people. They're looking out for each other. They're not to be taunted. They're not to be made fun of because they look a little differently. They're showing that people who are bigger, they're trying to improve their lives. They're trying to improve other people's lives. I do think that's really one of the silver linings of this show. Episode 10, and this is the final show with Rick Overton, is Ribs. The girls help Ronnie watch over his restaurant while he is away on vacation. It is what happens afterwards when he returns that will change Charlene's life forever. And in the IMDb capsule, it says Ronnie competes in the Great American Rib Off, leaving the sisters to operate his rib joint. So maybe he had success in the Great American Rib Off where he can afford to leave his restaurant, possibly, or sell his restaurant. I don't think there's a big rib tour. Well, there could be, but I just can't see that happening. So now we have ended the Rick Overton era, and now begins the Nidra Voles era. Oh! You guys don't share the same enthusiasm as I do. I'm sorry.
No, we don't.
That's your problem. Now stop. That's your problem if you don't have the enthusiasm for Nidra Voles that I have. Episode 11 is called Rent Strike. The girls organize a rent strike to get the landlord to fix the repairs in the building, only to learn that he transferred the ownership of the building to the tenants, which means the Gilberts now have to deal with their own home issues. And I do love a little typo in the wiki entry for this. It's not Nidra Voles. It says this will be Nerda Voles' first appearance in the series as a regular.
Nerda Voles.
Nerda Voles.
Okay, so since there was a rent strike, was there an appearance by Crystal Bernard because she wants to see Rent?
I want to see Rent.
I think you're about 6 years too early with that.
Oh, well.
You tried. Yeah, Crystal Bernard. I mean, how old would she have been at this point? Well, no, she was on...
Yeah, Wings would be on at this point.
Well, no, I was going to say... I almost said making a living, but yeah, It's a Living. That would have been on like 86, 87, 88. So she clearly would have been at the stage of her life where she would have Rent. She wasn't like a teenager at that point. She was young, but she wasn't a teenager. So yeah, maybe she did need to do something about the rent. We have a huge name as a character in this episode. Maybe not huge in 1990 or 91, but he's going to be really big, maybe starting around 91. Maybe you could even say 90 as well. Playing Tony, Hank Azaria.
Oh, wait a minute. The guy who plays Moe on The Simpsons?
I'm sure among other people. Well, obviously he plays other people besides Moe, but yes, that Hank Azaria.
I'm making a joke because obviously this would be on after The Simpsons.
Right, but also maybe he didn't, like, let's not necessarily say maximize his popularity, but The Simpsons was still in its infancy. Simpsons had been on for probably about a year at this point. But also, I know, and you guys know, and probably our listeners know, back in 1990, holy crap, Bart Simpson specifically was just like the king of like pop culture zeitgeist. I had a Bart Simpson Don't Have a Cowman t-shirt, which they apparently sold in 2XL back in 1990.
I had the underachiever and proud of it, man shirt.
We had the Don't Have a Cow board game.
There's a board game.
Yeah, there was a Bart Simpson Don't Have a Cow board game around 1990.
Now, I remember the video game. I remember the Game Boy games. I remember the NES game. I didn't know there was a board game. Also, I'm just taking a look at IMDb. I'm not going through all the characters he's done because seriously, this might take, not even joking, 10 to 15 minutes to get through. He's been that many characters.
I think the most notable recent role he's done is Brockmire on IFC.
Well, that definitely is true, but I'm talking about in terms of his Simpsons characters. Again, there's so many names here. It could take 10 to 15 minutes. We're not going to waste your time with that. Instead, we'll just move on to the next episode, which is episode 12, titled Most Likely to Succeed. In an effort to prove that she has accomplished everything she said she would after graduating high school, Charlene does just that in time for her high school reunion. Again, making herself better, empowering herself, while, I don't want to say ignoring the haters, but that's what it is. She's making herself better in spite of her appearance, and she's showing that people who are overweight, they're not just like lazy slobs. And again, I think that's very commendable. We do have a name in this episode, playing Sheila Marie, and I bet you, given her age, she's probably one of the people at this reunion. Denny Dillon from season 6 of Saturday Night Live, but also she was on Women in Prison. Episode 13 is titled All Bummed Out. For Lent, Charlene says it involves sacrifice, so the girls get a homeless man cleaned up and he lands a job. However, when he turns his back on them, the girls feel he owes at least some gratitude. Playing that homeless man, a gentleman by the name of Daryl Cloner, is William Wyndham. At least where I know him from, but also I think maybe the guys know him from this as well. He was a semi-regular on Murder, She Wrote. He was on 53 episodes. Dr. Seth Hazlitt, Attorney Sam Breen. So that's about 2.5 seasons, a little bit over 2 seasons of Murder, She Wrote out of 11. So yeah, he was a semi-regular. I think that's a appropriate title to give him.
Another name in this episode, playing Sister Catherine, who I'm guessing is a nun, Elmarie Wendell from Third Rock, Mrs. Dubček.
Ooh.
Episode 14. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is a thing back in 1990-91. Maybe we should have expected this type of episode title to be used. Babes, Lies, and Videotape.
Oh, gee. I wonder what that's in reference to in 1990, 91.
I was going to say, thank heavens it doesn't say Babes, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, but, well, everybody's got their own sort of kinks, and I'm not trying to shame. Things are really cooking for the Gilberts when Marlene, Darlene, and Charlene tried to serve up a chance to romance a chef that Marlene was doing a dating videotape for. Whoever wrote that, you don't end on a preposition. I'm not an English teacher, but even I know that. But the chef, they got a good chef. They probably got the hottest chef in all of LA, if not possibly the entire world, in 1990 and 91, playing himself, Wolfgang Puck. Spago. That's not a TV show. That's his restaurant. That's all you need to know. Spago. Episode 15, the title of which is Hello, Dolly. Charlene lands a job as Dolly Parton's makeup artist, which comes at the same time as a series of rumors about the singer hits the tabloids. First and foremost, appearing as herself, as you might guess, Dolly Parton. In addition, playing Becky is Lucy Lee Flippin. And we have definitely talked about her in the past. I know she was on, again, The Ropers, because I think she was the other sister of Helen Roper. So let's just take care of all the Roper sisters on this episode. But we've talked about her in the past. We talked about her in The Munsters Today. We talked about her in The Last Precinct. We talked about her on Flow. So we definitely have talked about her. And yeah, she played Hilda, who I believe was one of Helen Roper's sisters on an episode of The Ropers. So again, another person that we've talked about in numerous roles. That's going to take us to episode 16, which is titled Babes in Boyland. I almost feel like I want to put an uh-oh in here. Babes in Boyland. Nothing good happens in an episode called Babes in Boyland. Just saying. It's off to Alaska as Charlene and Marlene mine the last frontier for single guys. Meanwhile, back in NYC, that's New York City for those who don't know, a single guy from Alaska visits Darlene. I'm going to assume this is one of those Boyland babes. Good heavens, I apologize for saying it that way. Playing Pierre, who I'm going to assume is one of those people in Boyland, quote unquote. This is another person who I think you can make a Hall of Fame case for, because we've talked about him on quite a few episodes, talking about Phil Proctor. Yes, we could talk about his voice work on Rugrats, but since everything in this podcast goes back to Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, he was a guest on the first week of Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. So what is that? That's got to be at least 4 references to people who are on Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour this episode.
That's right.
That's a pretty good ratio, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, also, not just was he on the first week, but he also appeared, I believe, on the week where Bill Cullen was on, where Johnny Olsen said, "From hot potato, Bill Cullen." And actually, I think I'm off by a week because there's no Bill Cullen on this week, so I'm guessing it's the following week.
That's right, you dumbass. He was on the next week. The next week I said, "From hot potato, Bill Cullen."
I'm sorry, Johnny. I'm sorry to get your wrath.
Well, at least we got Johnny back and not the freaking ghost of Bill Armstrong.
Greg, I will try my best in these final, 6 episodes to invoke the ghost of Bill Armstrong. I'm up for the challenge.
Well, hold on. It couldn't be stranger than that weird gust of wind. And we heard kind of like sort of a voice a couple weeks ago, and it didn't seem like anyone was talking.
I understand. Weird stuff happens this time of year. It's Halloween. I mean, this episode is going to be released on Halloween. We all know some of the goofy stuff that happens around this time of year, specifically on this day. Episode 17 is titled Mom. The Gilberts' mother visits, and it's not all family-friendly when she starts coddling them and blaming Charlene for turning her away. And playing the mom, and that's actually the name she's given is Mom, not even a character name, is Barbara Barry. But she's one of those names where if you look through TV history, she's done a lot of stuff. She was on 93 episodes of Suddenly Susan in the late 90s through 2000. We did talk about her in Double Trouble, 15 episodes, and Tucker's Witch. She was also Elizabeth Miller, Barney Miller's wife, 37 episodes, only till 78. So I wonder if she got killed off because Barney Miller ran to 82. That's interesting. Another name playing Fred in this episode is Peter Haskell. Maybe not the best known name in the world, but where you might know him from, he was a semi-regular on You Don't Say back in 1975. But he had a number of appearances on different TV shows, guest appearances I know he appeared on at least one Quinn Martin show. I want to say Cannon, might have been Barnaby Jones as well. But also, he was the host of the 50 Grand Slam pilot. Wasn't Tom Kennedy, it was Peter Haskell.
Oh.
And just taking a quick look at IMDb, 3 episodes of Barnaby Jones. He was on an episode of Carib. There's another Quinn Martin show. And, of course, if we talk about Carib, I got to see if it was on the episode that aired on the day I was born. No, it wasn't. It was 4 weeks later. He did an episode of Streets of San Francisco. Oh, he did do 2 episodes of Cannon. So there you go. He did the trifecta. Actually, it would be more like the quadfecta or whatever they call 4 things. But yeah, he did Carib, Cannon, Barnaby Jones, and Streets of San Francisco. The next episode, which is number 18, is titled The Last Temptation of Marlene. Like Greg did earlier 4 episodes ago, I wonder what this refers to. The Last Temptation of Marlene. Y'all can do your own research. Look at what movies were very big and very controversial back at that time. Just as Marlene starts to make a vow to give up dating, she meets an unlikely guy at a punk music record store. I did not know punk music record stores exist. I thought it would just be a general record store. We got a name in this episode, and it's a name we mentioned quite a bit around here. Playing Mo, who I'm guessing may be the record store owner, potentially. Ernie Sabella. It's Your Move. So much other stuff, but I think all we need to say is It's Your Move. Plus also, he has a card in the Cheers Rittenhouse set, a signed card. I pulled it. I shared it when we did It's Your Move Revisited. Episode 19 is titled The House of Gilbert, a House of Style-inspired episode which finds the Gilberts becoming fashion designers after a department store notices Charlene's unique designs. But they're about to find out soon enough that their new venture is not as fashionable as they envisioned. We got 2 pretty big names in this episode guesting. One is a gentleman named Clem. I'm guessing based on what I see here, he must be involved in the fashion industry in some capacity. Played by Leslie Jordan, another one of our favorites. And you know if it was Leslie Jordan, he absolutely killed it on this episode, because he killed on everything. The other person, named Sloan, no, not a man called Sloan, just Sloan. Hey, there's another reference to a Quinn Martin production. A man called Sloan. Playing Sloan is Susan Kellerman. The 20th episode. Okay, I wonder what this is in reference to. Wait till you hear it. You'll get it. Only mentioned it at least twice in this episode already. Not Married with Children. After being placed on probation for causing an incident at a New York Rangers game, child hater Darlene takes her community service job of being a teacher to a group of children so seriously that she now wants to have children.
Okay, this is 1990-91. Mark Messier is not traded to the Rangers until the fall. So what New York Ranger could they have gotten for this episode? Like, I don't know, Brian Leach, John Van Beesbrook, Bernie Nichols?
You're the hockey expert, especially from that era on this podcast. So I'll defer to you.
You know, those are the only Rangers I can think of from like 1990-91. Maybe Mike Gartner?
Don't ask me. I don't even know who the heck Mike Gartner is.
How do you not know who Mike Gartner is? Damn it.
Do I live in a hockey town? No, I don't. I've been to one NHL game in my life, and that wasn't even really an NHL game. It was a preseason game, and that was, gosh, probably around this time, like 1991, 92-ish. And all I remember about the game is the Detroit Red Wings played. I don't even know who they played against. They played an exhibition game at the old Richfield Coliseum. Don't ask me about hockey. Basketball, yes. Baseball, yes. Football, yes. Hockey, nope. So while Greg ponders who was the New York Ranger player involved in that, we do have a name playing Jack in this episode. Jack Riley, one of the absolute best character actors of all time. Elliot Carlin on the Bob Newhart Show. I think that's the one show that we absolutely need to mention. But he also voiced Stu Pickles in All Grown Up, if you remember that. The Rugrats sort of spin-off.
And he was the voice of Stu Pickles in the original Rugrats.
He's just one of those people that, again, you see the face, you've seen him plenty of places beyond playing Elliot Carlin on the Bob Newhart Show. I remember he appeared on a number of episodes of Night Court. And also, since we talked about Married with Children plenty of times this episode, he was on a season 9 episode where he played a psychotic clown. It's going to sound crazy. He was hired for Bud's birthday. I think Bud was turning 21 or 20, and Al and Peg, in their infinite wisdom, said, hey, we're going to get him a pony, and we're going to have a birthday party for him. So they don't get a pony because pony's going to just die under the pressure of an adult riding it. But the clown was like a psychopathic clown. He had a knife and he was cutting off like the head of a doll and stuff like that. I don't want to say it was Jack Riley's best role ever, but I would say it's in the top 200. 2 more episodes to go, guys. Episode 21 is titled 11 Angry Men and Charlene. Boy, I wonder what this might be about. 11 Angry Men and Charlene. Charlene falls for a fellow juror while she is on jury duty. And we got names on this episode. I think we'll start off with Eberhart, who may be the judge, may be one of the jurors, who knows. But, oh, Greg, I know you're going to love this. He's played by Len Lesser. Uncle Leo.
Yeah, Uncle Leo.
The juror that she sort of fell head over heels for. No name given, but played by Christopher Rich. Hey, let's do another Match Game Hollywood Squares reference because we haven't gone enough to that well today. He was on numerous weeks of Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour with his future wife, Nancy Frangione. But also, oh my gosh, I don't want to admit this, but I think we have to mention it. Christopher Rich played Eric Charming on The Charmings. One more name, playing Milligan. Again, doesn't say what he did, doesn't say if he was a judge or a lawyer or jury member, whatever. Sal Viscuso, Father Timothy Flatsky on Soap. I mean, that's really all we need to say. Tim Flatsky on Soap. And this is where Greg chimes in with how he had a kid with Corinne, and the kid ended up being Satan reincarnated or something like that.
Yeah, he was Satan reincarnated.
And then also after that, or I believe due to that, he ended up exiling himself to like a cave. He became like a recluse, and I think that was actually the end of him appearing on Soap. Because that's like a total Soap thing to do. You father the demon spawn, and you suddenly just run off to some cave in the middle of nowhere, and you never are seen again. You're the bastard father to the devil, and Corinne's got to take care of the devil baby herself. Or something like that. Final episode, guys. Episode 22, Three's a Crowd. Fed up with living in a one-bedroom apartment, the sisters search for a bigger space, but tensions may force the trio to space out on their own. Nobody of note in that episode, so that's 22 episodes. I do want to ask what happened. The thing is, I think that's a tough question to answer. Babes did have a very plush time slot. It aired on Thursday nights at 8:30, partnered with a little show you may have heard of called The Simpsons. And as I mentioned earlier, The Simpsons was the big show for Fox. Well, I mean, basically since 1990, but it was like at its highest in 90, 91, 92, essentially. But if we take a look at the schedule, what did it go up against? maybe this will paint a bit of a picture for us. Given that Fox is a new network, I don't think it's beating any of these three shows. And even if it was on an existing network, I still don't know if you're beating any of these three shows. Maybe you're beating CBS. It went up against the first half hour of The Flash. And we talked about that in the past. We talked about how disappointing that show was back in 1990. I don't think you're beating the second half hour of Father Dowling Mysteries on ABC. You're not beating Tom Bosley. But I really don't think you're beating A Different World on NBC. Maybe you're going to be third in a four-horse competition there. But I think more likely than not, you're going to end up fourth in that four-horse competition. You're definitely not beating Father Dowling. You're definitely not beating A Different World. The Flash? Yeah. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I really don't know about that. So we took a look at the schedule. How about we take a look at the ratings? Because I think the ratings, personally, are kind of interesting for this series. I'm not going to pull up all the different weeks of ratings that I pulled up, because there's a lot. But just in a general search for ratings for this series, yes, it was on the low end. It was in the 60s generally. But remember, again, Fox didn't have the presence it had, let's say, even 5 years later, even 3 years later. Once they got the NFL in 94, 95, whenever it was, that's when everybody paid attention to Fox because, hey, we got to see football games. We got to carry this network, even if it's the fourth network. But relatively speaking, in terms of Fox shows, it was generally like the second best rated Fox show for most weeks, only losing out to The Simpsons, unsurprisingly. I wonder if the reason this show is canceled was because it lost viewers from its lead-in. That's the only real explanation I can give you. Yes, the ratings went down. Didn't look like they went down a whole heck of a lot, but you still had less people watching Babes versus The Simpsons. And maybe Fox just said, hey, we've got this powerhouse show, The Simpsons. We need a similarly powerhouse type of show so we can maintain those ratings. Again, that's the only justifiable explanation, in my opinion, why this only lasted one season. I do think the heart was there. I think the intentions were good. I think trying to dispel stereotypes is a great thing. But I think being paired up with The Simpsons may have been its downfall. Put it on a different night. Put it at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights. Put it before Married with Children. But I think you had Parker Lewis airing around that time, so maybe that wouldn't necessarily work as well as I'm sort of pondering in my head.
Following Babes was another news show, Beverly Hills 90210, and that went on substantially longer.
Well, maybe what you have here is some sort of ratings sandwich. You've got the good show on top with The Simpsons. You've got the good show after with Beverly Hills 90210. You've got Babes in the middle.
Well, Babes did better than 90210 in that first season.
But it doesn't have that long-lasting effect, is what I'm getting at. People don't talk about Babes and say, hey, remember that show Babes from 35 years ago? No, people don't say that in the same sense they talk about, let's even say Get a Life. Same time era, same network, and actually similar ratings based on what I'm looking at. But, yeah, it didn't have the outlandish Chris Elliott, the antics he did. It didn't have that goofy comedy. It didn't have the goofy plot lines. Dare I say maybe it was a little too wholesome for its own good? That may not be the right answer, but that's a legitimate answer. Maybe what they could have done, crazy thought here, and I know this probably wouldn't work out too well. At this point, you have another show on Fox that's just a juggernaut, maybe not necessarily a ratings juggernaut, but in terms of popularity, you have In Living Color. Why couldn't you slide that into like that 8:30 slot on Thursdays? I know it was on Sundays, and really that I think was the best place it could have been, but you could have had like 3 iconic early Fox shows in the 90s right there. Boom, boom, boom. Probably wouldn't get a whole heck of a lot of ratings because, again, they didn't get the coverage across the entire country until football time in 94, 95, what have you. One thing I do want to share, because I'm just this type of person. I'm not trying to pick on Greg. This really isn't picking on Greg in any way. But one thing I noticed is that Wings, at this time, also aired on Thursday nights. Not against Babes. But I did a little research earlier because I was bored. I have the ratings for the week of January 21st of 1991. I know it's a very specific time frame. There's a reason why I say January 21st of 1991. You're going to love this so much, or at least, dang it, I hope you do. The TV ratings for that week, out of 87 shows, Babes came in 63rd for the week. Wings, it came in tied for 19th with Family Matters and The Wonder Years. Do you know why I bring up this week specifically, Greg?
Is it the week Tony Shalhoub first appeared on Wings?
No.
Is it the episode where Lowell's blimp got smashed?
Exactly! That was the episode where Lowell's blimp got destroyed. You know, if I'm pulling up ratings for this specific week regarding Wings, you know it's got to be something memorable. Yes, Tony Shalhoub. We love him. We love his bread adventures. But this is the week Joe destroyed Lowell's blimp. And I had to get the ratings for it because I wanted to see how that compared to Babes.
Well, hold on. Let's not forget. It wasn't Joe who destroyed the blimp because Joe was just flying it. Roy stupidly opened the door because he didn't bother to knock first.
That's true. So Joe did sort of accidentally destroy it, but Roy sort of did the job by opening the door. Yes, you're correct there. So what can we say about Babes? I think there's better titles out there, but that's just my opinion. But again, in spite of immature Mike and his beliefs about this show 35 years ago, it turned out to be a show with a lot of heart. It turned out to be a show that was trying to dispel stereotypes. It was a show that really tried to put people who may be sort of outcasts in a better light. And as good and heartwarming as that is, that didn't translate into a second season, and that's why Babes is just a thing on TV.
You can find us at our website, itwasathingontv.com, on Facebook at It Was a Thing on TV Podcast, and elsewhere at It Was a Thing on TV. You can find us on any podcast player, and we're also on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our releases, including what's coming up next time.
Next episode, well, you're going to have to wait a while. We're taking next week off. Specifically, I'm not going to be here because the school that I teach at, they're going to be playing high school playoff football somewhere, and I owe them to be there. And who knows where I'll be. I'll be somewhere in the state of Ohio rooting on the Glenville Tarblers. Oh, who, by the way, they were champions in their division 2 straight years, 2022 and 2023. So this year they're going for a 3rd title in 4 years. Got to be there for that. But yeah, we're going to take it next week off. And then when we come back in 2 weeks, we're going to revisit another show. But there's a reason why we're revisiting this show. I don't think it's necessarily because more episodes have been found. I don't think it's necessarily because we have more information. Maybe it's because the general format of the show in the last 6 years has evolved, where we do a lot of things differently. But really, the main reason that we're going to cover it is a certain somebody on this show is having a birthday. I wonder who we're talking about. Well, I'm not going to mention the show. If I did, you know who we're talking about. But guess what? I'm not going to mention the name of the show. You'll just have to come back in 2 weeks to figure out who we're talking about right here. It Was a Thing on TV. Thank you to Chico. Thank you to Greg. And thank you for listening. Come back in 2 weeks for that episode. Man, Portland is a long way from LA.
Why don't you just tell them what we're talking about?
Man, that's one way, Chico, to describe Chauncey Billups' arrest.
Oh
my gosh. No.
Wow.
And so, Miss Blaub.
Ms. Blaub.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Your name was partially obscured by some errant flesh. As I was saying, I'm just not going to take anything, unlike you at a buffet. So, what do you have for me?
Some men in speed stick in my desk.
Well, let me give you a little tip. It goes under your arms. If you could ever get them horizontal.
Well, I can see that you are a real people person. So let's get you the hell out of here as quickly as possible. How many years of college did you have? I was just entertaining myself. Did you go to high school?
Poke high. And while I find you fat and repulsive, I'll gladly regale you with tales of my 4 touchdowns in one game.
Oh, how rare it is to have someone who played high school football in an employment office.
What, Blob?
Blob!
I know your name. That was a descriptive term. Now look, I'm putting myself in your sweaty, bloated hands here. I'm looking for a career, not just a job. You know, like a doctor or a guy who plays with Hooters all day.
That would be an anesthesiologist. Well, don't worry. I think we have something perfect for a man with your qualifications. Tell me, do you have any skills?
Well, I'm naturally inquisitive. For instance, I'm wondering just how strong that chair is you're sitting in.